Hello everyone, and welcome back to Player One Start. In today's video, we're going to talk about an E3 presentation which I feel has been overlooked. Did anybody else know that there is an Intellivision console releasing this year? That's right, we're going to talk about the Intellivision Amico. This is the console that was announced in 2018, and it was actually slated to come out before now, but of course due to delays, the pandemic, all that stuff, it hasn't come out yet, and it is scheduled for October of this year. Now, before we get too far into it, I do want to give you some background info on basically what led up to this point since we last talked about the Intellivision in my Intellivision Lives video. In my Intellivision Lives video that I did, I talked a little bit about what had happened to the Intellivision property and IPs after Intellivision stopped making video game consoles, and it all centered around this guy named Keith Robinson, who was spearheading efforts to keep the Intellivision library alive, being very passionate about preserving all of the video games that were made for the system, and they were doing that by releasing them in compilations for emulation on PCs and eventually consoles. The Intellivision Lives game that I reviewed was for the PlayStation 2, and that was released in 2004. In 2010, Virtual Play Games released Intellivision Lives for the Nintendo DS, introducing one never-before-released game, Blowout. In 2008, Microsoft made Intellivision Lives as an available download for the Xbox Live Marketplace as an Xbox original and playable on the Xbox 360. In 2003, the Intellivision 25 and Intellivision 15 Direct-to-TV systems were released by Technosource, and these were single-controller all-in-one designs that plugged directly into the television. I believe these units used a Nintendo on a chip, so the games were actually not emulated but rewritten to run on the new processor. In 2005, they were updated for two-player play, and according to some sources, these were very successful, selling about 4 million units by the end of 2006. Various other companies started porting games to Windows PCs as well as iOS in the later part of that decade, but due to the fact that not all games can be played effectively with standard game controllers, on October 1st, 2014, At Games Digital released the Intellivision Flashback game console, which is just a miniaturized Intellivision console with two original-sized controllers. It comes with 60 built-in games, and a sample set of 10 plastic overlays for the controllers for 10 games. And although this included several titles that a lot of fans were looking for, it did not include a single title that required third-party licensing. And that sadly leads us up to June of 2017, when Intellivision president Keith Robinson passed away. Having been the main supporter of Intellivision and Intellivision products, the future for Intellivision did not look very bright. That is until May 2018, when Tommy Tallarico announced his plans to relaunch a new Intellivision console and formed a new company, Intellivision Entertainment, serving as president. At the Portland Retro Gaming Expo in October 2018, the new Intellivision console was unveiled, including its name and a launch date of around October 10th, 2020. Developer kits were expected to go out in summer of 2019, and in May of 2019, they revealed its first major console-exclusive title, announcing that it had assembled a 10-member team of the original Earthworm Jim team to create a fourth installment in the franchise in honor of its 25th anniversary. That year at E3 in 2019, they unveiled working, functioning Amico hardware behind closed doors, allowing industry insiders to play in development games on one of the functional console variants, as well as to try out the phone-compatible controller mobile app. The following January, in 2020, Intellivision Entertainment made 2,600 special Founders Edition vintage wood-grain bundles available for pre-order, with the number 2,600 being a jab at Atari. However, right in the middle of pre-orders and selling to retailers, things were put on hold due to the pandemic. In April of 2020, the mixed crowdfunding investment company for video games FIG announced its acquisition by Republic, which allowed FIG to open itself up to larger campaigns. On that announcement, it opened a campaign for Amico pre-orders, as well as those who wanted to invest in the console. The console will see at least 2 delays to date, stating that the pandemic had affected their ability to produce enough consoles for launch. And that leads us up to this E3 presentation on June 14th of 2021. Alright, so that gets us caught up to about the present day. And let's go ahead then and talk about my thoughts on the E3 presentation this year that is going to showcase a console that's going to come out in about 3 months. For those of you interested in viewing the E3 presentation, I will have it linked in the description below as long as it's still online. But for me, I'm just going to share some of my thoughts that I had while watching this presentation. First, some of the comments that were repeated included things such as for casual and non-gamers. I don't know what kind of audience they're going for with a game console, but the fact that you mentioned that a lot in your E3 presentation really doesn't hold a lot for me personally to get excited for it. Oh, this is for non-gamers. And they kept saying hardcore gamers probably won't enjoy this system as much. And they mentioned that they're not about the teraflops or high graphics thing, but more or less creating just a fun experience. So that was something that I took away as, okay, set your audience expectations low. They kept saying games were designed for fun and simplicity. And my response was, as opposed to games that aren't. Granted, I have played some pretty terrible games back in my day, but I don't think any of them were specifically designed to create a non-fun, horrible experience. Although I do wonder how some game developers sleep at night. One of the main things I think they kept talking about besides their haptic feedback in their controllers was multiplayer, which is something that is incredibly big now, more than it was even back in the day. But one of the things I was left with a question on was, does this mean online? I saw online leaderboards where you can post your things on there, but all of their demonstration footage, or I'll say promotional footage of the console, don't really feel like there was much of a demonstration. They showed everyone in the same room playing the console, and I don't know about you, but I've had a hard time getting a bunch of people in the same room in the last year and a half especially. But if they want a younger audience, which I feel should be the target audience for a console like this, they are going to expect to be able to play this multiplayer in real time online. So my hope is that they will have something like that on there and we just haven't seen it yet, but I'm thinking after a year of delays they should have had a bit more information about that. A couple of takeaways I also had from this is that they had to start out by saying what Amico means. Apparently it is Italian for friend. And I don't know if you guys remember the E3 presentation that the PlayStation Vita had, but they also started off saying Vita, it means life. And sadly, just like the Vita, I think the word Amico is not really a catchy or trendy name that's just gonna propel this system into the stratosphere. I don't think this really does a good job of communicating what this system is supposed to be. I will also say having two screens, the one on the controller and the one on the TV, gave me some serious Wii U vibes. And sadly, that is not for the better. Because the thing I really didn't like about the Wii U was the fact that they made their games overly complicated to try to integrate that screen. That had to be a directive by Nintendo to incorporate the screens into the gameplay at some point, and a lot of times I just found myself wishing that I could play the game without having to worry about that second screen. Sadly, because I feel that they're very proud of the controllers they've designed, they are going to try to force you to use all of the features on those controllers, as they talked about not letting games on the system that doesn't meet their criteria. Now, I know they talk about things like being no loot boxes, no in-game ads, no paid DLC. I'm okay for all that, actually. That's actually a good thing in terms of putting the player's needs first. But I also feel like they're going to require them to utilize the controllers in a certain way that's going to make the games overly complicated. And to tell you the truth, that has always been my main criticism of the original Intellivision console. The games are much more complicated than they need to be because their controller design has to force you to play something that doesn't feel natural to the average player. In my conversations with people who played the original Intellivision, it wasn't the casual player that really loved the Intellivision, it was the hardcore gamer. It was the kid who sat there at 8 years old and figured out those controls and learned them to the point where everything just feels natural to them. The casual player is going to be turned away trying to learn the system and controls if they're not intuitive. And I feel like if their presentation was a bit longer than 10 minutes, they could have dove into a game and showed how intuitive it actually is going to be to play. Right now, I'm just left to speculation because, overall, there was actually very little information said here. This was just to let people know, hey, we have a console coming out, and I guess they assume the audience had never heard of it, because they don't go into great detail on anything, just an overview of everything they've talked about for the last 2 years. And I think that's kind of sad. This was kind of their moment to kind of showcase exactly what this system is supposed to be, because as of right now, they're still 3 months away from release. I am really hoping that this presentation is just a result of poor execution and weak marketing, rather than the fact that they don't have a console to show and things aren't necessarily going to be ready by October 10th. Because one of the things that they definitely left off of this presentation, I felt should have been there, was the release date. But to tell you the truth, in most of the other E3 presentations this year, I saw a lot of release dates that were pushed well into the future, with some saying just 2022 as their release date. Definitely not a lot coming out this year. Again, I get it because of the difficulties that arose over the last year and a half. But here, they just left it blank. They also didn't talk about the price, which I think is going to be the thing that really kills this system. Again, these prices are tentative, but as of this video, the lowest edition model you can get is $249, and that's the black and glacier white one that they keep showing in their footage. The wood grain one is $279, and the galaxy purple model is $299, which at a price point level puts this system in direct competition with the Nintendo Switch. And sadly, seeing how many franchises and games are available for that system, and this one's just a launch system that is not going to offer much of a better gaming experience than what you can get on a Nintendo Switch, other than the hope that the controller gimmick will be enough for you to buy that system. I mean, it did work out for the Nintendo Wii, but again, that was one of the cheaper systems out of the rest of its competition. So overall, I really feel like the reason why a lot of people aren't talking about this system is because it is not being taken seriously, and as this 10-minute video shows, there's not really a lot out about this system to get excited about other than they're going to have an Earthworm Jim game on it. So in the end, it is my hope that this console comes out on time this year, and if I personally was going to try to get one, I'd have to wait for that price point to come down. I'm sure that the production cost justifies the high price. The problem is, with what they're trying to do with this system, it really, I don't think, is going to survive at that price point. When looking at the list of games they have for this system, a lot of them just remind me of the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision's original library. These are all games that I have played in the past, just with updated graphics. And I should point out that this is not an official list, this is just what is posted on Wikipedia's page as of the posting of this video, so there may be some surprises ahead. I would say the biggest problem is that my perception of this console is it is another kind of flashback but upgraded kind of system. I really feel like the people that are going to enjoy this system the most are people that grew up with the Intellivision, but that is a very small audience out of the entire gaming atmosphere. There's really no incentive for anyone who has never played these games before to jump ship from their Nintendo Switch into this system. So, yeah, unfortunately I haven't really learned my lesson. One of the things I was very critical of on the original Intellivision that I have gotten a lot of responses to is the fact that I did not appreciate their controller design and how it kind of ruined the whole console experience for me. Unfortunately, it looks like the new console is going in that same direction. They expect these controllers to be the main selling points, because otherwise you can get multiplayer stuff anywhere. And the problem I see is behind this is that there is a very passionate group of people that are working on this system that really loved the Intellivision, loved its concept, but unfortunately they're going to carry on with that tradition of overcomplicating the gameplay, and I think the fact that they're trying to market this to just the casual gamer really hurts it. I think a lot of people were surprised at the price point because they probably thought this was going to be a budget system, and it is a budget system at a price point of a full-fledged system. So anyway, those were just my thoughts on the system. What do you guys think about this system, and do you plan on getting it? Is there a reason that I'm missing here that you guys think maybe I should give this console a chance when it comes out and pay the full price? Either way, let me know in the comments below what your guys' thoughts are, and maybe I'll pick this system up if indeed it does launch on time. That said, that is going to wrap things up for this video. I do want to thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned because I have more content coming, and I will see you all in the next one. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.